Let's go over what exactly an accessibility audit is. And we're going to be using the post that's on the screen with me from accessible.org to guide us through the discussion. Now, our most popular service is auditing. And when we're working on accessibility, it really comes down to two things: finding accessibility issues and fixing accessibility issues. So, in the first part, we're going to find the accessibility issues, report on those, and then give the client that report, which is the audit report. The client is going to take that report and start working through those issues. So they're going to start making the fixes. And that's what we refer to as remediation. So let's go ahead and scroll down this post and we'll quickly get to a section titled Accessibility Audit Definition. So let's work through this definition. An accessibility audit is a thorough evaluation of a digital asset's conformance with a given accessibility standard, typically WCAG 2.1 AA. So in this first part, I have thorough evaluation, and that's really important. We need to be meticulous. We need to be detailed. Implicit in the word audit here is manual. This is never a scan. We are never at any point copying and pasting scan results to create an audit report. So that's really important, is because this is so thorough. It needs, obviously, it's manual. It's going to be meticulous. I really want to make that point and emphasize that, because that's not enough emphasis is placed on just the systematic manual testing and assessment. And that's what I have here in the second sentence. But before we get to that, this is going to be against a given accessibility standard. Now, we don't have to use one standard. We can choose whichever standard we want. Most accessible.org clients go with WCAG 2.1 AA as their standard, but this could just as easily be 2.2 AA, or we could even go to section 508. Whatever the technical standard is, we are grading our digital asset against that technical standard. And when I say digital asset, usually what comes to most people's minds is website, but obviously this could be something else. It could be a native mobile app. It could be a web app. It could be software. So we are grading a digital asset against a technical standard. And with the audit, we are reporting on any instances of nonconformance with that technical standard. So let's continue on. Through systematic manual testing and assessment, an audit identifies instances of nonconformance with a given technical standard. And that's what I just said. Importantly, these instances could potentially prevent people with disabilities from effectively using a digital asset. So that's really the whole point here. Just drawing back and looking at the big picture, why are we even doing this? Well, there are compliance reasons, but underlying compliance is, and I have one of those, I forget what they're called. One of those insects just flew on the screen. But getting back to the audit, the reason why we're doing all of this is to make sure that people with disabilities have access to digital experiences. Now, one important note here is that we are not relying upon automated scans. We might use a scan as a part of our audit methodology, but we're never relying upon the results. So I have here at one note in this section: unlike automated scans that can only detect about 25% of potential issues, a proper audit involves diverse and comprehensive manual evaluation by technical accessibility experts. So I really want to drive that point home, because there are a lot of people who are starting to get into accessibility services, and they read some of the bad information that's available online and they extract meaning from that, but it's incorrect. There's an article from HubSpot that says, that's titled "How to Run an Accessibility Audit," which is obviously getting at scans. But we're never running. There's no running of an accessibility audit. Again, we are using diverse methodologies to uncover all accessibility issues that exist within a given scope for a digital asset. So I really want to emphasize that. It's really important for people to know, because too many people think that Google Lighthouse is an audit. So let's continue on. We have the purpose of an audit, which I've already covered. Again, is to identify all instances where a digital asset does not meet accessibility requirements under a given technical standard. And by the way, when we're talking about technical standards, they consist of criteria. Those criteria are best thought of as requirements. So we're trying to meet all of those requirements. And if there are any times where we don't meet those requirements, those will become accessibility issues that are reported in the audit. And then I have another section that is titled Audit Information. And it reads, our audits tell clients all of the practical information that they need to know to take action, including what issue exists, relevant WCAG or relevant success criterion. Here I have WCAG requirement, location of issue, recommendation for fixing issue. A lot of times this is going to include sample code that can be looked at when fixing the issue. So really guidance for the developer. And then there's a screenshot or screen recording of the issue, because first we want to make it obvious what the issue is and where to find it, so that way the remediation team can easily find the issue, locate it, and start working on it. But we also want the issue, what exactly the issue is, to be known. So you will find a description of the accessibility issue, and a lot of that will lead into why it's an accessibility issue, and then you'll have the recommendation for fixing the issue. And by the way, I'm going to tab to the documents page on accessible.org, which I will link to in the description. If you would like to look at our audit template, which contains sample report information, you can go to this page and download our template, and it's going to be in an Excel spreadsheet format. But we try to make our audits as easy to understand as possible. These documents are already technical enough. When you read through some audit reports, it's just not completely clear. It seems cryptic. And that's just because the technical accessibility expert isn't making it so that the information is more relatable and is able to be processed easily by the reader. And we want to make sure that whoever is reading the report can easily understand what's going on. Now, yeah, they might not be able to understand everything about, like, let's just say the code example, but it should be obvious what the issue is and how to begin making the fix for that issue. So we want to make our audit reports very practical, so again, the client can take action on those reports. And then in this next section, I just talk about website accessibility audits and then other digital assets, because when most people think about an audit, they typically think about a website, but it goes beyond just websites. I've already mentioned web apps, native mobile apps, kiosks, software, and so the list goes on. So it's not only for websites, but websites are what we most often think of. And so I have these two sections just to make that point. And then this article ends with benefits of audits. So I'm not going to go over all of that, but I will link to this as well in the description. And then one last thing I want to cover is the evaluation methodology. Now, not all evaluation methodologies are the same, and the process is not always going to be the same, right? But there should be similarities for any good, strong audit methodologies. And so here I have accessible.org uses the following methodologies and environments when evaluating your digital assets. And keep in mind with environments, these are things like the browsers, the operating systems, the devices. What different environments do is they make your audit more robust, because you have these environments and we know if there's an accessibility issue in this environment, that will be included. The more environments you have, the more robust your audit will be, because you'll have that many more environments. But it makes it's really cost prohibitive and not that practical, because a good set of environments you're going to uncover almost all accessibility issues. Maybe not every single one, but you're going to uncover most of those. And so we have set environments that we're using for desktop and mobile. And for example, the browsers there would be Chrome and Safari. And then our evaluation methodologies, screen reader testing. This is an absolute must. It should be included in every audit. And by the way, one note here on screen reader testing, if I haven't already mentioned this, you cannot combine screen reader testing plus an automated scan and have an audit. That's not enough. And I have read people stating as such that you just really need to test with the screen reader and then have scan results, and you combine the two and you've got an audit. Not at all. Screen reader testing is absolutely essential. It is huge. It is by far the most important methodology used, but it is not everything. So we don't just stop there, and we certainly can't copy and paste results to have an audit. But continuing on with the methodologies, keyboard testing, again, absolutely essential, must have in an audit. Visual inspection, again, very important. Code inspection. Here, you're not going to look at all of the code, but occasionally you will inspect the code. And then I have here an automated scan. So an automated scan is a good inclusion as part of an audit process. But again, you don't rely upon the scan. It's just there to make sure that, hey, if there are issues correctly flagged by a scan, we want to make sure that those issues are also included in our audit report. And then I have color contrast analyzer tool, browser zoom, and then we get into the assistive technologies and environments. But the point here is that you have a robust audit. And so you use a combination of methodologies and environments to ensure that you are going to uncover all of the accessibility issues, again, within that given scope for a digital asset. So that's what we're looking at here. That's what we're dealing with an audit. And I know I've gone on beyond just defining what an accessibility audit is, but now you have better context for accessibility audits, what we're doing. We're trying to uncover accessibility issues. And some of those accessibility issues can result in a barrier to access for some people with disabilities. But ideally, we want to make sure that we are working through as many accessibility issues as possible. And optimally, we'll get to a point where we are conformant with technical standards that we are working with. So if we're conformant, we know our digital asset is going to be in a really good place. And that's where we want to be. So we need to start off strong with a really good audit that is going to report on all the accessibility issues. And then we take that audit and we start working down the list and making sure that we account for and address and resolve all of the accessibility issues. So that's going to be it on what is an accessibility audit. I'm going to link to all of these resources in the description. And of course, if you need help with an accessibility audit, feel free to reach out to me. I will include a contact link in the description.